Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. And today, possibly for the first time ever on this channel, we're going to do one video about all of the guns that the battleship carried. Today's video was suggested by Caleb from Pennsylvania, who is an 11-year-old battleship enthusiast who watches the channel and correctly pointed out that we've never really talked about all of the guns in one episode. So we're going to start with the greatest and work our way down to the smallest. The greatest, of course, being the 9 16-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 guns that Battleship New Jersey is armed with. These guns fire projectiles weighing up to 2,700 pounds, using 660 pounds of propellant to shoot that projectile about 23 miles. This is a single-purpose gun specifically developed to engage surface targets, primarily enemy battleships, but it can be fired against any other type of surface ship, or throughout much of the ship's career was very effective at shore bombardment. It has a theoretical rate of fire of 1 round every 30 seconds, but more practically, the rate of fire would be closer to 1 round every minute. Our 9 guns are in 3 3-gun turrets, meaning that each gun can elevate and fire independently of the other barrels in the turret. The Iowa-class battleships are the only ships ever completed with this gun, although they were designed to be carried by the Montana-class battleships as well. Next up is the ship's secondary battery, the 5-inch 38 caliber guns. But first, a word from our sponsor. The sponsor of today's video is Magic Spoon. And thank heavens for that, because if we're going to walk over this entire ship today looking at the different gun systems on board, we're going to need some energy to do it. Magic Spoon is cereal reinvented. It's the same great taste that you remember, but upgraded with grown-up ingredients, no artificial flavors or dyes. It fits a variety of lifestyles, like high protein for if you're about to take a battleship into dry dock, keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, wheat-free, and naturally flavored. Click the link below to get some Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your very own custom box with all the flavors you love and use my code BATTLESHIP for $5 off. You can choose from the best-selling cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, and maple waffle flavors, plus other awesome flavors, including honey nut, blueberry muffin, birthday cake, cinnamon roll, and chocolate chip cookie. You can also add any of their delicious cereal treats to your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code and use the code BATTLESHIP for $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/battleship to save $5 off your order today. Also, for my Canadian and British friends, Magic Spoon ships to Canada and the UK. The Iowa-class battleships were designed to carry 20 5-inch guns in 10 twin mounts. However, during their 1980s reactivation, 4 of these twin mounts were removed, so in her current configuration, New Jersey only has 12 5-inch guns in 6 twin mounts. These guns are designed to supplement the 16-inch guns in firing at surface targets because they can be aimed and fired more rapidly than the 16-inch guns. They're much more effective against smaller ships like destroyers. In fact, the one time New Jersey engaged enemy surface ships during the attack on Truk Lagoon in February of 1944, she sank a Japanese destroyer and a trawler with her 5-inch guns without firing her 16-inch guns at all. These guns also formed a part of our initial anti-aircraft battery. They formed the long-range component of that, and by the end of the war, were the only weapon system that had effective stopping power against kamikaze attacks that the ship had. Because they can engage both surface and air targets, these are dual-purpose guns, and they're pretty ubiquitous, were used from the 1930s all the way up until the 1990s, by the US Navy at least. These guns fire a 55-pound projectile using 15 pounds of propellant in a 7-pound canister for 22 pounds total. They have a theoretical rate of fire of 1 round every 4 seconds, or 15 rounds per minute, but during the kamikaze attacks late in World War II, we knew that they were able to get that down to 1 round every 3 seconds, or 22 rounds per minute. In World War II, they stopped being as effective as anti-aircraft weapons. However, we still fired more shore bombardment rounds during the Korean War and the Vietnam War from our 5-inch guns than we did from the 16-inch guns. They're a ubiquitous weapon system that was seen on nearly every class of American warship, basically designed from the 30s up into the 70s. Next up, we have the ship's Phalanx Sea-Whiz close-in weapon system. These 4 mounts were added to New Jersey in 1982, and they formed our anti-aircraft battery during the 1980s. They can be used to engage jet aircraft or missiles. The core of the system is a Mark 61 20mm Vulcan Gatling gun. It has 6 barrels and can fire up to 2,000 rounds per minute. It fires a depleted uranium discarding sabot round. So while it's a 20mm bullet that leaves the gun, the actual depleted uranium penetrator is only 11 millimeters thick. The extra 9 millimeters sloughs off as the round leaves the barrel, and that super dense depleted uranium is able to impact very hard against missiles and aircraft, and so it can do maximum damage to throw them off course or detonate the warhead or the fuel of the weapon. While there are ways to manually aim it, it is primarily designed to fire on its own. When enabled, it can track targets, identify whether they have a friendly IFF transponder or not, and engage the targets. With its 2 onboard radars, it can not only track incoming targets, it also tracks its outgoing bullets to make sure that it lines up to score a kill. During World War II and the early part of the Korean War, Battleship New Jersey would have been equipped with 20mm Oerlikons like this. A Swiss design with a 60-round drum magazine that's loaded into the top of the weapon, it fires from an open bolt, which is really destructive to the cartridges. But New Jersey, by the time she deploys in World War II, would have carried 49 of these single mounts. By the end of the war, she would have carried 57 of them, with 8 of the mounts being twin mounts. When she was reactivated in 1950, Battleship New Jersey had 32 of these in 16 twin mounts dispersed around the superstructure, primarily for shooting small boats and mines. They'd do the job that the .50 calibers eventually replaced. By the end of 1951, they had been phased off of these ships. During World War II, these formed the 3rd layer of defense for anti-aircraft guns. They only have a range of about 2 miles, and against late war aircraft, and kamikazes in particular, which you had to entirely destroy to prevent from hitting the ship, these just didn't have the stopping power. However, it's one of those iconic weapon systems from World War II, even though it does have a relatively short service life in the US military. Initially built with 16 quadruple 40mm mounts, by the time New Jersey actually deploys to the Pacific in early 1944, she had 20 of these mounts on board and would retain them throughout the rest of World War II and the Korean War. When she's reactivated during the Vietnam War, however, these have been removed because they can't track fast-moving jet aircraft. They have a rate of fire of about 140 rounds per minute per barrel, and the exploding projectile weighs 2 pounds. They come in 4 and sometimes 5 round stripper clips that are fed into a feed tray on the top of each gun. These guns were originally designed in Sweden as twin mounts, and when they were adopted by the US Navy, they were taken in as twin mounts, doubled up into quadruple mounts, and also singled down into single mounts. New Jersey only ever carried the quadruple mounts. New Jersey also carried Zuni rockets during the Vietnam War as chaff dispensers, and Tomahawk and Harpoon cruise missiles in the 1980s. However, those are for another day. In today's episode, we're only talking about the ship's guns. Also, she would have carried small arms, but we're not going to cover all of the rifles and pistols that were issued to the ship in this episode. Next up, we have the Mark 38 25mm Bushmaster. This chain gun It technically was never on New Jersey, but it was carried by Iowa-class battleships, and New Jersey was equipped to be able to carry one. She was just decommissioned before it could ever be installed. This weapon system was installed to give the ship more stopping power against small, quick attackers, such as suicide boats. It supplements the ship's 4 50 caliber machine guns that we'll talk about in a moment. While technically not a weapon system as deployed on USS New Jersey, the 2-pounder saluting gun here, the ship would have probably from the 50s to the end of her career carried at least 2 of these, usually 4 prior to the installation of the Bushmaster. These fire a 2-pound blank charge for rendering honors and salutes. They were never supposed to fire projectiles from this ship. However, technically they are a gun, so we're going to cover it in this video. While many of the other weapons we've discussed today were brand new and state-of-the-art when they were installed on the ship, our smallest gun is also our oldest. The M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun was first deployed in 1919. This weapon is effective against small boats and personnel, fires about 600 rounds per minute, and has an effective range of about a mile. Battleship New Jersey would have carried about 4 of these, probably in the 60s, but definitely by the 80s, although there are 8 of these tripod mounting points around the main deck. The 4 guns would normally be stored inside and then brought out and mounted on deck like this as needed. So which of these weapon systems do you find most interesting? Something like the 16-inch guns deployed only on Iowa-class battleships? Or the ubiquitous 50 cal that's been around for over 100 years? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also a number of other businesses and private individuals. For today's video, we'd like to thank Magic Spoon for sponsoring us. Remember to go to magicspoon.com/battleship and use the discount code Battleship to get your cereal today. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.